Hey, it's Seb, and I'm in Japan. The ironic thing is, I just started building a bookshelf in my parents' house in the UK because basically I had a box of books from Canada, a box of books from Dublin, and then this pile of books that had been behind me in my last few videos, which is just books that I'd left in my parents' house in the UK. And so, like, I kind of like went through those and organized them, and three of my three sacred books, Pedro Paramo by Juan Rulfo, the Word Book by Mieko Kanai, and the Metamorphoses by Ovid. Those were all in the different piles, right? We had like the Mexican book was in the Irish pile. No, that was in the Canadian pile. The Ovid was in the Roman one was in the London pile, and then the Japanese one was in the Irish pile. So like I got all my sacred books, and they'd always been separated across the continents, and I put them together for the first time, like alongside each other on a bookshelf, which was just like my favorite kind of like my core books. It's not that big, but I felt really good about it. Like, okay, I've got a shelf. And then I got out of there, and now I'm in Japan. So like, it's nice to know though I've got like a kind of like a stable bookshelf, maybe waiting for me, or like that I can at some point bring around and put in my own house if I ever decide to live somewhere on a more permanent basis. But yeah, I'm in Japan like for now. We'll see how things go. I decided to travel kind of lightly, but in the end I did end up bringing quite a lot of books. 10, I think. Although let's go through them. This first one, this is the kind of the big one. I dropped them all. Clean Cut by Linda LaPlante is actually a gift that my partner's landlord gave to them back in Ireland, and so I'm just kind of delivering this. And I realized though I don't really read thrillers at all anymore. I used to like read one a year probably, and quite enjoyed that, but I just haven't been in the mood. So although this is an option, I'm probably not going to get around to it. Next two are by the same writer, Heinrich von Kleist. I got Anecdotes in Seattle, and I got Amphitryon in Vancouver. I got like a bunch of Kleist secondhand things while I was in Vancouver because I realized before I left North America that it's very difficult to find him in Europe, at least at a decent price, whereas for some reason in North America, I guess it's because they were published in North America originally, but yeah, you can find lots of stuff by him in secondhand shops. And yeah, I decided to bring this one, Amphitryon, because it's very light and nice, and I guess this is just also the next play I want to read by him. He's also one of my favorite writers, so I'm super excited for both of these. This is kind of, I think, a kind of comedy, tragedy comedy thingy, which is a Greek myth retelling. And this is a bunch of anecdotes, I think blending fact and fiction that he wrote in his tabloid kind of journal that he published for a while. And this is, I mean, the things that he wrote were really inspirational for Kafka, so I'm expecting those kind of microfiction kind of vibes. Then I brought A Little Devil in America. I brought this to Canada, and I ended up bringing it back without having read it, so I felt a bit bad about that. So I'm bringing it again to another part of the world, and I started reading it on the plane, and I have to say I didn't really connect with it. I felt it was kind of journalistic, which is fine, but I don't know, like, not really what I want to be reading when I'm reading a book usually. And I ended up skimming to other bits, and some parts of it I found very interesting, but again, sort of in the way that if you find a great article or something like that resounds, that resonates with you, then like that kind of thing. It was the one that I really liked was about the singer, whose name I forget, but a singer who is on Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones. Like, there's a chapter about her and her life. And I mean, the fact that I don't know her name is, I guess, kind of what the chapter is about, because she gives so much power to that song, which makes it really iconic, but nobody really knows who she is. And yeah, I really like that chapter. But the other ones, like, you kind of have to connect with them, I feel. But yeah, we'll see. I put it down for now. I might dip in and out of that one, depending on my mood. Then I brought 50 Sounds by Polly Barton. This is memoirs from a translator who, like, I guess she's writing about Japan and the Japanese language and her experiences here. And the way she structures it are through sounds, like Japanese onomatopoeic words. Like, it's not really chapters, but like jara jara is the beginning of a section, and she calls it the sound of a flash of metal in the blood. And a lot of these things, they sound kind of orientalist, and like she's, I don't know, taking normal words and giving them their most poetic version, you know what I mean, to make them sound quite exotic, like Nobi Nobi, the sound of space. And I don't know, I'm very skeptical about it, but very interested in it, not least because she is the translator. She is, isn't she? I'm not going crazy. Is this her? Yes, she's the translator of Mild Vertigo by Miyako Kanai, who's one of my all-time favorite writers, like Kleist. And she's I haven't read, this is her book that came out 2 years ago now, or was it in 2024? I forget, but I haven't read it. And it's very rare that her work gets translated into English, and that's basically all I know is the writer. I think it's about a housewife in Japan doing her daily life stuff, but that's all I need to know. So I'm really looking forward to that. I bought that, and I bought this autobiography of Red by Anne Carson right before I left London, because I figured it would be easier to get them there and cheaper to get them there than hunting them down here. And I really want to read both of them. I saw this in the shop, but it's one that I'd been meaning to read for a while. It's, I think, a kind of Greek myth retelling. And it's like that in the literary fiction Greek myth retelling kind of Venn diagram. It's in the middle bit, so that's always very interesting for me. And it's a poem, and I think like somewhere it says it's an epic poem. I think I read that somewhere. She calls it here a novel in verse in the subtitle, which doesn't sound like an epic poem. But in any case, I like poetry. I like Greek myth retellings. I've heard lots of good things about Anne Carson. Also, she's Canadian, and I feel like I haven't read enough Canadian writers, especially given that I lived a year in Canada. So I should probably, brush up on my Canadian lit. Then my cousin gave me this book, this kind of mysterious book. This is the most mysterious book I own. It's called The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers. I don't know anything about it except that it's sort of like mythical, cursed, legendary book. It's I've heard like rumors and things about it. I think it's like a kind of a play in a play or a book in a book situation where there is something that's written like a text called The King in Yellow, and when people read it they go crazy or something like that, or it's something to do with madness. That sounds great, and it's also special because it's a gift from my cousin, and I had like the best time in London thanks to my wonderful cousins. So yeah, this is something which is going to be like, has a very special place on my tiny bookshelf at the moment. Not bookshelf, book pile, I guess. I don't have any shelves in this accommodation at the moment, but I'll make a little book shrine somewhere. I'll find a little corner for them. I brought Woman Running in the Mountains by Yuko Tsushima, who is fast becoming one of my favorite writers. I'm like halfway through. This is following a young woman, very young woman, who gets pregnant, and the kind of fallout that has on her family life, and how it sort of like, I don't know, brings her into a new stage of life as a human on Earth, it feels like, and makes her reevaluate her position in society and with her family and blah blah blah. It's very good. It goes through a year, like her last book that I read, Territory of Light. It goes through a year following this woman doing her like daily life, and I'm in winter. I'm trying to read alongside the seasons, so I'm in winter. So I've been stopped for a long time now, so that I can read the winter chapter. Unlike Territory of Light, where it went month by month, so every chapter I could kind of like get a regular fix, this one is much more, I think you're not meant to read it this way. I think you're probably meant to read it like properly as a novel, like just, start to finish. But I like dragging things out when I like them. So I'm going to enjoy savoring this a bit longer. I'll read the winter chapter soon. And then another wintry book that I brought along is Diggers by Terry Pratchett. This is the second book in his Gnome trilogy. This is fantasy for kids. The first book I read at the beginning of the year, Truckers. It was a reread for me, and it was even better as an adult than when I read it as a kid. So I'm obviously going to continue the trilogy. I think I'll do this maybe in January, or if I can't wait, I'll start in December. We'll see. It's about a bunch of gnomes, like kind of about like a little a society trying to survive on Earth, and it's very funny and wholesome and sweet. Also, I bought a book almost as soon as I got here. I went into a bookshop. First bookshop I went into, I looked for the manga series I'm obsessed with, Dungeon Meshi, and they have like in manga shops they divide the books into shonen and shoujo, which is boys and girls comics. So I wasn't sure which one it belonged to. I think it was published in a boys comics magazine, but the writer is a woman, and so like also like it didn't feel particularly like it belonged to any particular genre because it's so great. And so I looked through the boys ones, and then I looked through the girls ones, and I couldn't find it. At the very back corner of the bookshop there was, instead of shoujo and shonen, there was a little section which was just called comic. So I guess it was just like the ones that they didn't know how to gender and categorize. And that's where Ryokokui was. That's where I found Dungeon Meshi, and I bought volume 7, which is what I'm up to at the moment, and I started reading it, and in Japanese it's difficult for me, but luckily I've already seen the anime on Netflix, so I know what's going on. That's it. I realized going through these that most of these are gifts. I think most of them, the ones that I didn't say that I bought somewhere or other, were presents, so that's also nice. Maybe that's another reason why I picked these ones subconsciously, and I think it's got like a kind of a nice mix of my interests that should keep me going for a while. Anyway, that's me doing my geographical check-in. I hope you're all doing very well wherever in the world you are, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye bye.